With the basement complete, the work moves up to the first floor. Here, of course, the pipes must be concealed behind the walls, and that means removing sections of wallboard to expose the bays between the studs.
That was probably the most difficult part because we don't necessarily always know what we're going to run into when we open up the walls, whether it be wires or even ducts that could be in the walls.
It's a light mark.
The contractor doing any kind of residential fire sprinkler work has to have the tools to do what has to be done in a clean manner, and that would be in drop cloths, plastic, a good vacuum, and having some tools that a lot of times woodworkers would use, a nail gun, utilizing like a rotozip for cutting sheetrock, a good wood boring tools, those types of things where you can do clean cuts. So a lot of the tools you'd have would be tools that are not common in the sprinkler fitter's toolbox, but tools that make the job easier, particularly when you're working in wood construction.
Holding a vacuum nozzle close to the rotary cutting tool cuts down on the dust. Next, a hole is drilled through the bottom of the wall and into the basement below. A section of pipe is cut to length, cemented to a right angle fitting, then the entire assembly is passed through the hole where it will be connected to the basement sprinkler line. Here on the first floor, the pipe is extended section by section up the wall and horizontally through the wall studs where necessary.
On the first floor, we utilize the horizontal sidewall sprinklers, and the reason being is that in order to use, say, a different type, the type in the ceiling, we would have had to go up into the ceiling joists and open up the ceilings. So this becomes a much quicker and easier way to still provide sprinkler protection. Yeah. Then we located a couple spots where we could run piping up to the second floor and actually through the second floor into the attic. And at that point we were looking for closets to utilize. And the closets being a space where we could hide the piping running up through and not have to open up any walls on the second floor to get to the attic space. We found one closet in one of the bedrooms, and that provided us a perfect avenue to get up to the attic.
This power crimping tool squeezes the joints together, making a permanent watertight seal. The final section of metal pipe is passed through the ceiling and into the attic. Here, the pipe is run horizontally above the bedroom ceilings.
Once we got out into the attic, we had some floorboards that we had to deal with, but it was attic flooring, and it was something that we could cut channels out and actually reinstall some of the attic floorboards once we were completed. So you almost didn't even know we were there at the end. But in the attic allows us to do a lot of our piping. Even if we have to expose it, we know we're going to insulate it later on. And that allows us to pipe all the heads down to the second floor ceiling. Generally speaking, if we're running sprinkler piping, we usually have to go above the joist because usually with joists spaced 16 inches on center, it becomes difficult to start drilling multiple joists and then trying to feed any kind of length of pipe through that joist itself. What we try to do, if we can get into joist channels where we're running parallel, we can leave the piping below the actual floorboards. In some cases, we have to have the piping above the joist. It could be, you could build like a raised platform over it. That way you'd still have concealed piping. But in some parts of the attic that we installed the piping, it was space that was obviously used for mechanical space with other ductwork and was never going to be concealed.
Thread sealant is applied to the sprinkler heads and they're screwed in. Finally, a cap is installed to conceal the recessed sprinkler from view.
Insulation that we put over the piping in the attic is to create a pocket for basically the heat to be trapped between the second floor ceiling and the insulation. And what we do where we have to leave the insulation exposed, we'll put like a poultry netting, or sometimes they call it chicken wire, over that insulation and seal it down. And that just is kind of a little insurance policy to make sure someone doesn't kick the insulation over, or say a contractor comes in later and has to install a light, moves the insulation and forgets to put it back there. Just kind of sends a message that the insulation's there for a purpose.
Once the system is leak tested, it's pressurized and ready to go. If there is a fire, the nearest sprinkler will activate. In most cases, only one sprinkler will go off.
Routine maintenance for a wet pipe sprinkler system with a tank and a pump would be annually to do a test, and I'll say it'd be a flow test, and basically going to the inspector's test and actually operating the inspector's test valve, and that simulates a sprinkler head opening. At that point in time, what it'll do is it'll start the pump up, start moving some water through the piping, activate your flow alarm switch. At that point, you see your pump's running. Close down the valve, the pump should shut off on its own, and then after that you can top off the tank and you'll be ready for next time. The other thing you may want to do is, particularly, is walk around through the whole house, just check on all the piping, see that nothing has changed in the house of any kind of construction or anything has changed with the protection or coverage, and then particularly check up in the attic to make sure the piping and the insulation are still in place.